Shalom. All praise is due to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Racha Kwadash, the honors of the elect apostles, bishops, elders that great most stone and well. Shalom to elect Ak out there doing his work in sincerity and truth and not for vainglory in season out of season. Shalom to the men, women, sons, and daughters of the elected nation of Israel, which are the elect men, women, sons, and daughters of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans scattered to the four corners of the earth. So I just want to make this quick. Let's go right to it. Deuteronomy, the 30th chapter and the 7th verse. It says, "And Yahweh, thy power, will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee." So it says, "And Yahweh, thy power, will put all these curses upon thine enemies." And who's our main enemies? It's the so-called white man, the heathen nations. Okay? And all them curses are going to go on them. All the curses that Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai spoke about in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter. You can read it. Well, let's go to one of the main curses. Going into slavery. Okay? Okay? Because when you read in Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, it tells you that we're going to be servants. You know, we're going to serve slavery. Okay? All right? Under our enemies. Under to be servants and handmaids. So they going into slavery. The so-called white man is going to go into slavery, and all the other heathen nations that put you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, Hispanics into slavery. Okay? All you got to go is go to, well, you can go to a whole bunch of scriptures, but you can go to Isaiah 14:1, okay? And read on down, you know? All right? So all these curses that Yahweh, thy power, put upon us, you know, being slaves under the so-called white man of the heathen nations, Africans, East Indians, so forth, Polynesians, so forth, okay? East Indians and so forth, you know, all them curses gonna come upon them, you know. So yeah, their women are gonna be given to the men of the nation of Israel, because we're gonna have concubines in the kingdom, okay, of all the other heathen nations. Yeah, we're gonna have Israelite wives, such as the black, Latino, Hispanic, and Native American woman. But we're going to have concubines of the heathen nations. Just like you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native Americans, West Indians and Haitians were concubines, slaves, sex slaves, and slaves to the so-called white man. Okay? You know? So these curses is coming back on Esau, which is the so-called white man. Esau is his biblical name. Well, it's one of his biblical names. All right? Okay? You know? And all the other heathen nations. You know, on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. They're not the so-called white man, and other heathen nations persecute you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans back during the time of slavery, back in the ancient world when we was going off and the Most High kept on putting us under the slavery of these heathen nations. Well, and they still doing it to the same very day. All right? Okay? You know, here it is. You so-called black people, so-called African American, as the so-called white man likes to coin you. You built this country, but then you got heathens come over here. They have their own communities. They build up businesses. And they thriving to the most part, you know. Then when you go into their so-called neighborhoods here in America, they don't want you even in their so-called neighborhoods, man, that you built up, you know. All right, you know. So they just making money off of you, man, and they're persecuting you, especially the so-called white man. Okay, so all these heathen nations, all the curses that was put upon us in Deuteronomy 20th chapter is going to come on these so-called white people and these heathen nations. Okay? Africans, East Indians, so forth, Japanese, Chinese, so forth. Okay? And that's a beautiful thing. Okay? And thou shalt return and obey the voice of Yahweh and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. You know? So yeah, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is going to bring us back. Yahweh through his son is going to bring us back to obeying him and following all his law, statutes, and commandments. See, this is why we all the curses came upon us, but now it's going to go up upon the heathens. Now it's coming back now where we obeying the elect of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. You obeying the voice of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai and rehearsing his law, statutes, and commandments. But the kingdom is going to be fully the kingdom of heaven for the nation of Israel, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So yeah, all the curses that's on us, living in the ghettos, in the slums, not having enough money. You know what I'm saying? You know, the heathen nations in the kingdom, they ain't gonna have shit. They don't have nothing. They're gonna be slaves, man. Okay, until that 1,000-year period is up. All right, of their slavery. So hope you've been edified, and with that, have faith, be cheerful. Okay, because Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai is gonna avenge his people, which are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Americans, starting with the elect of you, which are the elect of the nation of Israel, then all the heathen nation, and then all the nation of Israel. Shalom.